when I was in what I would call the darkest period of my life, the problems that I was dealing with seemed like the biggest problems I would ever face. And when I look back at it now, this was not the case. This could not be further from the truth. But the things that I was dealing with were really just poor mental health, pretty bad physical health. It was on the decline. I was really just worried about what I was going to eat, what homework assignments I was going to do, when I was going to go to the gym. And at the same time, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life while being in a very poor mental state. And I would stay up every single night just wondering why me? Why do I have to deal with these problems? Why am I the person that has to go through this? But what I didn't realize at the time was that most of, if not all of these problems were completely self-inflicted. I created them myself. The poor mental health that I was dealing with, the depression, was a result of me not having any sort of direction in my life. The decline in my physical health was because I wasn't taking the gym as seriously as I should have been, and I wasn't eating anything that was remotely nutritious. But I thought at this time, if I was just able to solve these problems, that I would never have any problems again. These would be the worst problems that I would ever deal with ever. But that just is not how life works. And yes, these problems felt really big and really real at the time because they were to me. But as humans, we never are able to truly get rid of problems. We only are able to increase the size and increase the importance of these problems. And really, this is what life is all about. Like as a baby, you don't really have any problems. And if you do, they get solved by your parents pretty quickly. And as you kind of get older, you kind of grow, your problems get a little bit bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But at a certain point, most people hit a wall where the size and the importance of the problems that they're solving, it just stagnates. And now looking back at the situation that I was in, I realized that most people are doing the exact same thing that I was doing. They are creating problems for themselves. They're dealing with problems by themselves that may impact them a lot, but they're not really important when it comes to the rest of the world. And if you want to have a big impact on the world, you want to make a big change in the world, help people, you have to get to a point where you realize that the problems that you are dealing with yourself have to be solved before you can solve problems for other people. And when you think about it now, like maybe your parents or maybe somebody older that you know, when they're in a place in their life, when they're just complacent, they have their career down, they have their wife, they have their family, they're not actively trying to go out and solve more problems. They're not actively trying to pursue any sort of goal or any sort of mission, right? And so what happens when you get to this point, when you are almost in a flat line, you start almost making up problems on your own. You start inventing them because we're wired to solve problems. We're wired to find solutions and improve humanity, right? And so once you hit that flat line, it's like all of a sudden what you're going to eat for dinner, what you're going to wear the next day, those type of things become your problems and the things that you have to do on a daily basis. Like that is what you cannot let yourself happen. Like that's what you cannot let yourself do. And this is why I think so many people today are just so anxious and so uptight about everything because they don't actually have anywhere for them to they're not needed anywhere. Their mind is not needed. They don't have to actually go out and solve problems for the world. They don't have people counting on them. And so as I think back to that time in my life where I was dealing with all these big problems, I realize now that those problems were not that big in the grand scheme of things. There are much worse things happening in the world. People in the world are dealing with much more difficult circumstances. And what got me out of this rut that I was in for almost a year was just thinking like, what good is it doing me to live like this? Why am I allowing some mental condition like depression or anxiety? Why am I letting that take over my life? And it almost was like an epiphany where I was like, this is just stupid. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to live like this anymore. These problems have no place in my life and they're just preventing me from going where I want to go. I need to get rid of them as fast as I could. And that was really all it took for me to get out of that. And so as I started figuring some stuff out, I was really in a tough period where I didn't know what I wanted to do with the rest of my college career. I didn't know what I even wanted to do with my life. And I remember hearing somebody say that your success in this life is directly proportional to the size of the problems that you have to solve. And when I heard that for the first time, I was like, that just makes so much sense. And what I realized when I heard that was like, if I want to have any sort of impact on the world, if I want to help people, if I want to solve problems for other people and a lot of other people, I have to be good enough to solve my own problems. I have to be good enough at problem solving to fix my own life. How can I possibly expect to help somebody else's life if I can't even fix my own? And if you can't tell exactly what I mean when I said that your success in this life is directly proportional to the size of the problems you have to solve, if you think about any sort of successful person in this world, they've already moved past the quitting weed, the quitting porn, the quitting alcohol phases of their life. They're not thinking about that anymore. Those are not problems on their plate. Maybe they are, but they don't have time to think about those. They are worried about winning championships, making more money, growing their businesses, things that are much greater than just themselves. They are pursuing goals and they're pursuing missions that go far beyond just them. And if you are in a place where you feel like you want to help a large amount of people, you will realize that letting yourself get caught up in these like useless self-inflicted problems, like any sort of addictions or bad habits that you might have created for yourself, and not fixing them is pretty selfish. That's what I realized. Because the longer you deal with those problems and the longer you just keep cucking yourself over and over and over again, the longer it takes for the people you want to help to receive the solution to the problem that you can solve. And I think what you need to do in this situation, if you're in a spot where you just cannot seem to get out of your own way, you just cannot figure out how to solve these problems in your life right now, and you know you want to solve bigger problems, you kind of have to ask yourself, like, what is the goal of all this? Like, why am I dealing with these problems, first of all? And how can I just get these out of my life so that I can actually move up the ladder and solve bigger problems? Because I think the biggest reason why people get stuck in these cycles of just cheap dopamine and bad habits is that they don't have a why. There's no why behind their actions. They just do what they do on a daily basis. They don't actually have a reason to get better. They don't have a reason to improve themselves. And I think this is why so many people lack the motivation to make big changes in their life. Because if you don't have the motivation to do something, it's because you don't have to do it. Motivation does not matter if you have to do something. It doesn't matter how you feel. It doesn't matter what mindset you're in. Something has to get done. So you get it done because you have to. Like if losing weight or if being obese was the biggest problem in your life, would it matter if you were motivated to go to the gym or cut the calories? No, because if you treated it like you had to do that, if you had to go to the gym, if you had to cut those calories, it wouldn't matter. Motivation does not mean anything in this situation. And that is kind of what I mean when I say your problems are not big enough, because all of these problems that you have in your life that are just personal, they're just what's going on up here, what's going on out here, what you're doing every single day. Those things are only related to you, but you're not actually solving any problems. You're not being counted on by a bunch of other people. And so I think the first thing that everybody must do is find some sort of goal or larger mission that you can devote yourself to that goes far beyond yourself. Because if you don't have that, if you don't have anything that you are channeling your energy into and your reason for living, making these changes and escalating these problems and making them bigger on purpose, that's going to be super hard because you don't have a reason to. So I'm going to show you something that has allowed me to keep that why in the back of my mind at all times. You might think this is weird. You might think this is dumb, but I'm going to grab something real quick. If I don't feel like making a video, if I don't feel like going to the gym or doing what I know I have to do, I just look at these. And I guess you would call it a vision board or something like that. But when I don't want to do something, you have to zoom out. If you don't feel like doing something, you have to zoom out and realize what made you start in the first place. What are you actually doing this for? And every single time I look at either of those two pages and that YouTube play button, that fake makeshift play button that says, presented to Kendall Hargens for passing 100,000 subscribers, I know that hasn't happened yet. And I know all the things that I put in that paper, which are just a guy raising his hand, a house, a guy helping somebody, a car, and then a family. Those are the things that I think about. Those are the things that drive me to do what I know I need to do every single day. Because if I didn't have that, if I let go of that why behind my actions, it's like I don't have anything to drive me. That is what zooming out and looking at the bigger picture truly means. Because if you don't have a bigger picture, if you're just so narrowly focused on what's going on right now in your life and you can't think that far in the future, of course you're going to give into those bad habits. Of course you're going to do things that aren't aligned with the version of yourself that you see in 5 to 10 years, because you're thinking too much in the present. And of course it's good to stay present and be in the present moment, but when you're doing anything, if you don't have any reason to be doing it for 5 to 10 years, it's like, why are you even doing it in the first place? And so I don't care how corny you think that is. Once you find a mission or a goal to devote yourself to like something that wakes you up in the morning every single day and you just fly out of bed, then you have to remind yourself of how important that is. And, make a vision board like this. Like, just put some pieces of, or put some pictures on a document, print it out, things that you want to have for yourself in 5-10 years or even longer. And every single time you look at those, keep those by your bedside, or keep those like anywhere where you can see them a lot. And I promise you, any single time you don't feel like doing something, you look at that and it'll be like, okay, I don't care about what I'm feeling right now. I don't care about all these dumb little problems in my life right now. This is what I'm working towards. This is what I want. And no emotion, no state of mind could stop me from getting there. At the end of the day, again, you're never going to be able to fully get rid of problems. They're just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger until if you allow yourself to hit that wall where your problems just stay the same, they're not getting bigger. That is when you stagnate. That's when you lose any sort of motivation or drive. You have to have something that you're working towards every single day that just gives you a reason to improve. And yeah, I know looking at that fake YouTube play button might seem just weird to some people because, I'm not there yet. And it's like, why are you trying to convince yourself that you are? I'm not. But that is what I can't explain it. That's what I am working towards. That is what I want. And that's why I am doing these things that I do on a daily basis. There is so much about you that is unique. You have all sorts of unique skills and knowledge and experiences and passions that you can use to help other people improve their lives, but you have to be able to improve your life first. And I promise you can do it. If I can do it, if I can get myself out of a dumb, terrible, dark hole like that, you can too. It's all about what you choose to see those problems as. If you see them as the end of the world, if you see them as the entire weight of the world, collapsing on your shoulders, of course, it will be hard to get rid of them. Of course, it will be hard to solve them. But once you realize you can zoom out and look at the bigger picture and look at why you're even here in the first place, you'll realize it's not that bad. And you have much more important problems to solve later on as you continue evolving. So find that mission, search for that goal, that thing you're working towards that is beyond yourself. Find the why behind it. Why are you doing it? What is it that you want in 5 to 10 years? What problems are you having to solve right now? How can you solve those as fast as you can and move on to bigger problems? And then once you can do all that, once you can just cut all the bullshit and focus on what truly matters outside of the problems that you are creating for yourself, you're limitless. One day this will be real. This will be real one day. And when it is, you can come back to this video and you'll be able to see that why that I had when I first started. It might have fluctuated here and there, but at the end of the day, it was always here. It was always within me, and it was the thing that drove me to do everything that I wanted to do. So whatever that mission is, whatever that why is, whatever those things are that you want in 5-10 years, maybe even shorter or longer, find those things, never let them go, and stop at nothing until you get there. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to comment, like, subscribe, all that stuff. But until next time, peace out.